I'm Phil Tippett. I was the visual effects supervisor for the Ed 209 scenes on Robocop, primarily responsible for the stop motion animation on the Ed 209, the police droid sequences. Yeah, for the stop motion characters, the deal is really no different than the currently computer graphic characters today. It's finding what's in the script that's compelling or interesting, what the background of the character is, and it really depends on what it is. I know for Ed 209, we taped and filmed a lot of actually at that time I think it was the 16 millimeter film robots. We shot a lot of robotic elements and went to like mills and lathes and looked at the attack and decay of movement and how things jiggled, and you begin to build up these files, and then you work very closely with the director in laying out the choreography in storyboard form, and that pretty much determines the approach that you use for actually shooting on the set and making sure that the plan that you have started out with is the plan you execute on the day, or that it doesn't vary more than 10 or 15%, because particularly for the stop motion photography and the budgets that we were working with then really didn't allow for any really elaborate camera moves where you have to track the thing in. They were pretty much all locked off shots, and so all the choreography of the surrounding action can't be too wild and handheld and then cut to this boring locked off shot. Paul, one of the things that characterizes his picture making style is his camera choreography, and then it comes to these shots where, what, you want me to lock off the camera for all the shots? Yeah. I'll go, okay. Because of the budgetary constraints that we had, he was very reasonable at collaborating and allowing the structure of the scenes to be determined by the limitations of the technology. And at the time, stop motion animation was kind of a tricky thing. There were certain kinds of things you did with it and certain kinds of things you didn't do with it. And the plan, as we had developed it, was to structure the scenes around a large-scale prop that just stood there for the dialogue scenes, and a stop-motion model for the action and ambulatory scenes. And just making sure that there was kind of an internal logic, because the thing was a robot. It could shut itself down. It would walk into a room, pa-dunk, jink, dunk, power itself down, and then we'd wheel in the big prop. Most of the time we use the full-scale prop that Craig Hayes built and shoot the dialogue scenes. And Paul did the rehearsal, so Paul would come in and be Ed 209 and do his and frighten all the actors, and that was like the run-through, and we'd film that run-through. And then Paul would leave and we'd film a burst of the Ed 209. That would be our lighting reference, and we'd pull that out. And the actors had all their eye lines, and and Paul directed them. You look here, and then you look there, and he was very careful about his his choreography and his layouts. And that was pretty much the structure of how we dealt with all that stuff, and it allowed created a very simple but convincing illusion. That's all very important. Then primarily what you're dealing with is the presence of the thing inside the locked off frame, and it doesn't become about all the camera choreography. It becomes about the action of the thing. There really wasn't a lot of money to work with, so we couldn't get into really any fancy blue screen photography. And at that time, it was certainly quite pre-digital technology. So the only way at that time of creating these artificial characters was either putting a guy in a suit or building a big prop or doing a stop motion animation puppet. So I was a big proponent of unearthing a lot of the Ray Harryhausen techniques. Having worked for a number of years at Lucasfilm, most of the work and the compositing that was done there was via blue screen, and it's a very kind of a strange and personal way of working, where you have to imagine what you're shooting against a nondescript blue screen. But with rear screen photography, which is what we used on Robocop, it was a development of the animation process that Ray Harryhausen used from Sinbad on, which you shoot a photographic background plate, project it onto a translucent screen, build a stage, put your puppet in front of that, stop motion puppet in front of that, light that puppet so that it matches the background, and have any foreground objects that you need to, and shoot that. Now there's a whole litany of different tricks that you can apply to create masks that break up the actual photographic background that you've shot, that allows you to place the character within the photographic background. And that means shooting through panes of glass that you've painted out black, or doing paintings on glass that you've lit to match. And all of the Robocop photography was done with VistaVision background plates, a large 8x format that we were very careful in designing, as all reproduction, photographic reproduction, gains contrast and grain and color distortion. So we shot on the widest format, double the size of the 4x taking cameras. That allowed us the smallest amount of grain, and we worked at creating very special low contrast masks for the backgrounds as well, because we knew that the backgrounds were going to gain. So I was very lucky to have working for me at that time Harry Walton, who was very adept at developing these contrast masking plates.